Hi, welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my November reading plans. I think pretty much everything that I have planned this month is all like a group read or a buddy read, and there's quite a few on this list, kind of a diverse list of genres and all of that kind of stuff. And I think the only event that I'm participating in is Nonfiction November, which I think is not like officially an event anymore because Book Olive hosted the very last Nonfiction November last year, but maybe someone else is carrying the torch this year. I haven't even checked, to be honest, but it's funny how you kind of get into this mode of like, this is the month that I read this. So that even if the people who are the creators of the event stop doing it, you still continue. Just like, even if Victober was no longer a thing, I would still read Victorian books in October. And even if middle grade March was no longer a thing, I would still be reading middle grade books in March. So regardless of whether or not anyone is actually officially hosting a Nonfiction November this year, I am still participating, but that's the only event that I have made actual like concrete plans for. The first thing that I will be reading for Nonfiction November is actually with my in-person book club. We will be reading The Place of Tides by James Rebanks, and we actually read a James Rebanks book last year, and it might have also been in November. Now that I think about it, it was in the fall, so it was either October or November. He is a nonfiction writer, as you might imagine, and The Shepherd's Life was really like a chronicle of his life growing up on a farm and then how he carried that on from his father and all that kind of stuff. I actually really loved his writing style. I loved a lot of things about that book, but there were things that kind of drove me nuts a little bit, and I felt like it needed maybe a better editor. So The Place of Tides was written after A Shepherd's Life, and my friend who recommended The Shepherd's Life and The Place of Tides said that she really feels like you can see his growth as a writer in this book. This particular book is focused, I believe, on like people who make like eiderdown pillows and things like that. And so now so much of that is processed mechanically, and he finds a woman who is older, and she is like the last one in her area that actually does this by hand, and this is the last season that she's going to be doing it. I don't know that like the topic of down bedding and pillows is really that fascinating to me, but I love his writing, and I feel like it's going to be very atmospheric as well because his writing of the countryside in England was beautiful, and this takes place right on the water, so I feel like it's going to be a very lovely and enjoyable book. The other book that I am reading for Nonfiction November is a chunky one, and that's Wild Swans by Jung Chang. And this is, oh, so many people love this book, so I'm anticipating loving this with my whole heart. This is like an intergenerational story of a family. Well, these three Chinese women, I think it's like grandmother, daughter, granddaughter, I think, chronicling their lives. It says Three Daughters of China right on the front. And so I'm reading this with my older sister. It's been one I've wanted to read for a really long time. Pretty much everyone I know who's read this book, it ended up being one of their top books of the year in the year that they read it. So I have really high expectations for this one. Those are my only official nonfiction reads. I wouldn't be surprised if I pick something up on audio maybe at some point during the month, but those are the only official ones, but I have plenty of other books that I'm planning to get to. For my Patreon, we decided we were going to read sci-fi in November, and I put up a poll of like 4 different options for them to choose from, and the book that won, barely, by 1 vote, is The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. So I'm super excited to read this. I've actually had it on my shelf for a couple of years. I picked it up in my library for like 25 cents before I had even read any Bradbury. They had like 4 of them there, and I was like, oh, well, if I don't like him, it's no harm, you know? And then I read Something Wicked and then fell in love with Bradbury. So I have read one of the short stories in this because this is a short story collection, but they're supposed to be interconnected. I think it's after people have landed on Mars and then their experiences there. But I read one of the stories that was recommended for something, and I don't know why, but it was called There Will Come Soft Rains. And that one's actually often read in like colleges and high schools and stuff like that. And I don't remember why I read it. It was recommended for something, but I did and like loved it. It's one of my favorite things I've ever read by him. So super excited to read this and work my way through it and then discuss it with my Patreon. As one might imagine, I have a fair amount of classics on this list as well. So I'm going to be reading Chance by Joseph Conrad with Dia. We had originally planned to read this together in Victober, and then I started looking at my Victober TBR and I was like, I don't think I can get to this. I think I'm going to be really stressed if I try to read this. And sure enough, I'm looking now like, wow, there was no way I could have read this. So we decided we were going to boot it to November. Victorian books are not only for October. So we're really excited to read this one together. I feel like I can give it the time and brain space it deserves if it's in a different month. It is a longer one for him. A lot of his books are pretty short, and this one is 360 pages, so it's on the longer end. But the thing that really intrigues us about this is it says on the back that it is about a girl who is like his most complex heroine in one of his most unrelenting but not unhopeful novels of emotional isolation. So the fact that it has like a really complex main female character was something that definitely like bumped it up for us, because we had a couple options we were choosing from, and this one's like intrigued us the most. I'm also finally going to be tackling Resurrection by Leo Tolstoy. I'll be reading this with Lauren and Dina, so I'm really excited to read it with them and get their thoughts as we're going through it together. I actually don't know anything about the synopsis of this, and I feel like I don't really need to. I'm okay not knowing what it's about, because a lot of times when you read blurbs on the back of books, a lot of times they contain major plot spoilers, which is stupid to me. Because it's like, yes, this book has been around for a really long time, but also like I haven't read all the books. So that's why I don't read introductions to classics anymore. I got burned big time with that when I was reading Frankenstein for the first time. And since then, now I read the introductions when I'm done with the book, so I won't be spoiled. Anyway, so Resurrection. I have heard wonderful things about this. I have had several of you tell me that this is your favorite Tolstoy, which makes me really excited to get to it. It's actually been quite some time since I've read a Tolstoy. I think the last one that I read was War and Peace, and that was like 2.5, 3 years ago. So I am long overdue for a Tolstoy. And the last classic on this list, Stephanie and I are continuing a read through of the Anne series by Ella Montgomery. So we are now on book 7, which is Rainbow Valley. And I'm pretty sure that this book pretty much entirely focuses on Anne's children. And we got a lot of focus on them in the last book we read, Anne of Ingleside, and that was really fun to see which of her kids were kind of similar to her, and, you know, which ones were different, which ones were more like Gilbert. And so really fun. So I don't know how prominent of a role Anne is going to play in this book. I would still say like half of Anne of Ingleside was very focused on her, but half of it was focused on her children. So I feel like that's like a transitional book coming into this. So I'll be curious to see, because towards the end of Anne of Ingleside, some of the kids are getting a little bit older, starting to come into teenage years. So I don't know if we're only going to be focusing on the younger children or if we're going to be focusing on all of them. But the final book, Rilla of Ingleside, is about her youngest daughter. So yeah, so I'm really excited to read this one. Then I have a couple of other books, as if all of this wasn't enough. I have a couple of other books. I'm really excited to try to get to the Rainfall Market, and this is, I'm pretty sure it's Korean. Yeah, it is, by Yu Yong-gwan. So this is Korean, and I am reading this hopefully with Crystal's Discord. Crystal from Fiber Artsy Reads. I will link her channel and her Discord below. She has like an amazing Discord if you love like Korean entertainment, especially K-pop. It's like super hoppin'. I am mostly a lurker there, but it's a really fun Discord. But she does have a whole separate channel where this whole year they have been doing bi-monthly reads of Asian translated literature. And, you know, my hope and my goal was to join in with every single one of them, but this is only the second one I've joined in. I started another one and then I ended up DNFing it. It wasn't a hard DNF. I just got overwhelmed and had too much going on. So it's one I hope to go back to, but this one I'm really excited about. Dia actually gifted me this earlier this year, I think around K-Tropathon, because this was one of her recommendations when we did a live for K-Tropathon about recommending like our favorite Korean translated books. Like this was one of the recommendations. And so it's much more cozy. I think more in like the style and feel of Dollar Gut Dream Department Store, which I did read earlier this year and really liked. It says, on the outskirts of Rainbow Town, there is an old abandoned house. They say that if you send a letter detailing your misfortunes there, you could receive a ticket. If you bring this ticket to the house on the first day of the rainy season, you'll be granted entrance into the mysterious rainfall market, where you can choose to completely change your life. So that's kind of the premise. It sounds really good. It's not that long, I don't think. It looks pretty slender, around 200 pages. Lastly is a carryover from October. At the time I am filming this, I have started this book, but I'm not very far into it at all. And that is An Echo of Things to Come, I think. I hope I'm getting that title correct. This is book 2 in the Licanius trilogy by James Islington. I finished The Shadow of What Was Lost in September. I read a lot of it in August and finished it towards the beginning of September. And then we were going to pick it up in October, and then me and Whitney, by the way, I forgot to say who I was reading it with, Whitney and I. And then it just kept getting delayed because we were just both really busy, had a lot going on. And so we didn't even start it until later in the month. So the bulk of this will be read in November. But I really enjoyed book 1. It is a really interesting world. The world building was really good. The plotting was really, really interesting, and kept me like hooked. I kept wanting to read it all the time. But I did feel like book 1, I felt like the characters were a bit lacking. And by a bit lacking, I don't mean that they were flat or cardboard cutouts, or that like I hated any of them or anything like that. I just didn't feel super attached to them. And Whitney had the exact same feeling. So I don't think that it was just me, but the first book was his debut novel. So I'm hoping that we'll have like increased character development and that I will feel more attached to them than I did in book 1. Anyways, these are my plans for the month of November. I'm like looking at this list and I was like, oh, it's not that many books, until I look at it and realize like, okay, Resurrection's like, I think over 500 pages, just a little bit over. Wild Swans is pretty long. An Echo of Things to Come is very long. And I'm like, oh, hopefully I will get to all of these in a reasonable amount of time, but we'll see. I'm super excited about all of them. Some of these I have been, like Resurrection, I've been waiting all year to get to this book. It's like a highly anticipated read of this year. And so I'm very excited about that. So I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. If you have read any of the books that I'm planning to read, you can let me know your thoughts. I always love chatting with you about books, but I'm even more excited to hear what your reading plans are for the month of November. If you are participating in any like read-alongs or readathons, if there's like anything you're really, really excited to read. I feel like November, you know, it's not quite Christmas, but it's still like cooler weather, cozy, atmospheric. And so I feel like it's a really good time to pick some good books and to really enjoy them. Anyway, that's all for this video. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, you can hit like and also subscribe to continue to see more bookish content from me. And I will see you again next time.